So what I'll do now is I'll just take you through an overview of LPG and the new code that we launched last year, and then I'll hand you over to Alan, who will take you through a much more technical presentation on the type of equipment which is quite important for your industry. So who we are? We are the trade association for the LPG industry. We are really the one voice. There isn't any other trade association in the UK. Our member companies, which consist of people like Calagas, Flowgas, Avanti, equipment manufacturers, and service providers like training bodies and consultants, they make up for 99% of the LPG that's distributed in the UK. So when we do work with government, we really are representing the liquefied petroleum gas industry. We are dedicated to safe and effective development of LPG. So there are two strong arms to our trade association. I deal with all the technical side and the safety side, and we have a very good platform for engaging with members and getting safety guidance out. And the other work stream that we have, which is very strong, is the policy side, where we lobby government on clean growth strategy. And we actually have a brochure which we're happy if you take away, which is the off-grid, the policy for off-grid market, which we launched with government. We take a leading role in the consultation and negotiation with legislators. One of my main areas is to work very closely with the Health and Safety Executive. They welcome our guidance because, as you know, the regulator wants industry to take more ownership of what we do. So we're responsible for producing our codes of practice, and many of those are actually endorsed by the Health and Safety Executive. I also work with the Department for Transport closely on the transport of dangerous goods, because LPG comes under that area. And from time to time, although the structure is a little bit, it's not as rigid and it's not easy department to work with, which is BASE, on the gas appliance regulations and pressure equipment safety regulations. So LPG is the most multi-purpose energy. It's probably the most versatile as well in the world in terms of its use. You've seen some of the applications, but I'll just take you a bit more slower through those. So it is a wide range of applications, which you'll see. 95% of Brazilians cook on LPG in their homes. Autogas, very interesting today because, like I said, I didn't really know what to expect today and what the sort of key areas you'd be looking at. I did realise it was a technical conference, but I was very interested in Keith Warren's presentation about you having to also look about reducing your carbon on transport. And this is something we work very closely with the government on. As you know, they are quite stubborn. They still favour electric, but they need to be a bit more practical and look at interim solutions until we get to a situation where electric vehicles are not just cost effective, but they're efficient as well for everyday vehicles, and it's not just the high end of the market. So I was with a black cab driver in London a few weeks ago, and he asked me what I did, and I was talking about autogas, and he said he was driving a diesel taxi, and he said in order to get an electric black cab, it starts at £60,000. And he said, that's an awful lot of investment for me. He said it was bad enough buying a diesel taxi many years ago for £40,000, but another £20,000 more is not practical. And he said, I'm just going to stick with my car and just run it to the ground. So the government it's not an easy win for the government. And then when you see they've banned some petrol and diesel vehicles in east part of London, and he said it's a ridiculous situation because he said I have to drop my customers about 50 metres away from a hotel entrance because I'm not allowed on that street. So this is where we're lobbying to get in, to say, look, allow LPG into the ultra-low emission vehicles as an interim, because you need a practical solution. It can be transported and stored in cylinders or stored in bulk, which I think is probably more in kin with your area, whereas in the street food side, as you know, it's more to do with cylinders. LPG has a very strong shelf life, and this is the bits we do lobby with government. It's got 20% lower emissions than carbon footprint than heating oil. and 50% lower than coal. But on the autogas side, the real driving benefits, which we told the government about some 18 years ago when we started with autogas, is there's a huge reduction in particulate matter, PM10s, and also NOx levels. They didn't listen to us, and they went down the diesel road, giving a benefit in kind to carbon dioxide, so everybody jumped on that wagon, so to speak, to get their company cars to pay less duty. And I think now we're seeing a little bit of a U-turn. Cylinders are versatile, as you know, they're portable, and this is why it's so widely used in developing countries for cooking outside. And in fact, we work also with the World Association, and one of the noble projects they do is called Cooking for Life, where they're trying to get women in African countries to not have to go and pick up solid fuels like wood and bring it back like about a mile or so into the house and use it. So they're trying to get them onto LPG to make it a lot more easier and humane, I suppose. This is something which the government is always, which we always lobby, and it's a very, very hard thing because, like what was spoken about earlier today, they just see electric as the ultimate way to go in many areas. And a lot of lobbyists have said they're not taking into account whole life emissions on how electricity is produced. And it literally has thousands of uses, including other stakeholders that we work with, like the hot air balloon industry. So how is LPG produced? It is a product from crude oil, and it is an organic compound, and it consists of carbon and hydrogen. And so it is originally it was a waste product as a byproduct of fuel, and the LPG industry started about 100 years ago, and it's taken that energy and made it into something more purposeful. So over 700 million people around the world rely on LPG for cooking. Over 50% of people in China cook with LPG. And in this country alone, these figures were supplied about 3 years ago from NCAS, and I'll get some updated figures, but there must be well over 10,000 outdoor catering operators in the UK now. As you know, street food is really rising, and there's many, over 750,000 cylinders get consumed a year, which is also slowly rising. So using LPG in the catering industry, I'll just quickly, you probably know a lot of this anyway, it is a very efficient fuel to use. The operating costs can be cheaper than charcoal because you're not wasting your charcoal. You're not wasting the LPG. It's very versatile. It's like autogas, it's used all year round. In agriculture, it's used all year round as well. And it is portable. So there's many members of the public bringing me up and saying, I'd like to convert my little van to run on to sell coffee. So how can we turn it into a coffee shop? It's very easy to use, as you probably know if you've got a barbecue at home. But I think the main benefit is the direct heat. You do get very, very high temperatures, and you get it very fast when cooking with LPG. And the good thing about it is if you're cooking a steak, you won't char grill it as much. Emissions, this is something that is very beneficial for LPG, which is why it's really taken off before in the forklift truck market. So forklift trucks that run on LPG with the cylinder on the back can actually go inside buildings. So the only two are electric and LPG, but diesel wasn't permitted to go in. And LPG generators are much quieter than diesel generators if you do use them. So the key objective of us is to promote the safe use of LPG. There are some unique characteristics of the fuel. It is odourless, but we put a stenching agent like natural gas so you can smell it. If 1 unit of it's stored as a liquid in a cylinder or in a bulk tank, and 1 unit of liquid, if it gets out, it expands about 270 times. Yeah. It's less dense than air, it's more dense than air, so it collects at low levels, which is why we have sighting distances, and it mustn't be near, installations must be sited near drains. But when used properly, it is a very, very safe fuel to use, which is why it's used unregulated in many markets around the world. One of the things that we've been doing in the last 5 years is to really raise our profile in terms of getting other stakeholders like yourselves to know who we are and where you can come to for help. So we've worked very, very closely with policymakers and government, like I've said earlier. We work with installers and consumers within our area. And we work closely with Gas Safe Register, and we have electronic subscription for codes. So if you're a member of Gas Safe Register, you can pay for a subscription and you can download a lot of the codes of practice and also British standards and IGEM standards as well. And that's for sole traders, limited up to, I think, 10 people in the company. We work with an awful lot of stakeholders now, so we work with the Holiday Home Park Association, British Homes and Holiday Parks. We work with National Caravan Council, the Caravan Club. We work with the Energy and Utility Skills for on the ACS assessments that gas installers need to take to get into the industry, and the balloon industry, as I said earlier. We also work with training and accreditation bodies, so we're now developing, as some of you may know who's more in the training side, L56, which is the ACOP for the gas safety and use regulations, was amended a few years ago, and we had input into that, and it says that any new entrants coming into the industry has to have training that is recognised by the industry body and the Sector Skills Council. So we've been working with EU Skills for a number of years to develop the specifications, so we have a consistent approach across the UK with training providers. We work very closely with manufacturers like CLES to make sure the standard that the equipment they manufacture, whether it's abroad or UK, is fit for purpose through the standards that we work on. So we work on EU standards, and we work on the UK standards, like British standards as well. So we always have representatives on those bodies. And of course, we work very closely with our LPG suppliers. And they all help us to produce the codes of practice that we've been producing for the last 40 years. So these were some of the companies and bodies that helped us to write this relatively new catering code. And as you can see, the main driver was NCAS, the Nationwide Catering Association, who approached us a few years ago. And they said, we need some formal guidance that is recognised in the industry, even though they had their guidance. But in a meeting with Gas Safe Register, they wanted a document that they could use for their inspectors, so they classified it as a normative standard that they wanted within the industry. So why was the safety guidance necessary? So again, this is data supplied by NCAS, and they reckon that more than 75% of catering trailers over 2 years old would fail. These were some of the incidents they've seen. Unsafe gas storage and ventilation, non-CE marked appliances, unsafe installations, and there's a whole raft of other issues as well. If you look at these problems, unprotected gas cylinders very near to the catering facility, cylinders kept within enclosures, no windshields and probably no flame failure devices, and no hot surface notices or protection, even though that's got nothing to do with the LPG bit, but they were trying to draw attention to some of the issues they have or see. So what we did is we got together, along with many other stakeholders, and local inspectors as well, who go around events and sign off the catering appliances. And they all had input into this code of practice. It's the first time, although we had a code of practice before, this is quite different in the sense that it's really more written by the industry than us when we did this some 20 years ago. And it brings in all the new practice. So it was written really there was a call that business operators and event organisers wanted something that was easy to read because they can't read regulations. the British standards that are produced are really for the designed end and not for the operational end. So our codes are mainly for the people doing the work. It's the operation side and the gas installers. Of course, we wanted some guidance that was relevant for now, and it was consistent across the UK, that local authority inspectors and gas safe registered inspectors could use, and we're all applying the same principles. And one thing we did try to do, and this is why it was good to have input from everybody, was to make it very easy and simple to use, to understand. And NCAS now actually sell the codes through their members, and so when they do their training for new business startups, they also promote the code as well. So we know it's getting out there. In the type of contents we've covered within the code, so it's the design and construction. Now, albeit this is for outdoor catering, but I think there's a lot of synergies in there for your applications. It talks about the equipment, the importance of pressure regulation, automatic changeover devices, flame devices, flame protection devices as well. It talks a lot more detail on LPG appliances and generators, where you can store cylinders, what's the definition of an indoor event, can you cook inside with LPG, so all that's in there now. Talks a lot about ventilation and flues, and then commissioning operations, maintenance and training, emergency procedures. And one of the things we thought that was very useful to do to have in our appendix for an inspector is to go through all the pertinent areas of the code and actually produce a checklist. So they could go through the code, but instead of going through every page, they could use this as a template and make their own inspection sheet, and then they can adapt it appropriately. So we weren't protective of this, but we just wanted to say a starter for 10 for the industry to get them going. We also produce other guidance on the use of connectors, and I did speak to one member earlier on, and they said, oh, they use LPG hoses, and we have a whole raft of information and guidance that we're always updating on our website to say, you know, what tubing and hoses should be used for different types of pressures and applications. So what we do is we've interpreted BS 16436 and 3212, which is going to finish soon, and we've put it into very, very simple guidance with just a little table. I've got it here if you want to see it. And we also, if you do use cylinders, we've also got some very easy guidance on hoses and tubings. But we have a whole raft of guidance depending on what application you want to have it for. So in terms of conformity against the code, Gas Safe Register now have a code, and they will use it to inspect against in events if their installers, if their inspectors go out there. And they have got a technical helpline for the code if anybody's got any questions for registered businesses. I'm going to be working much more with local authorities next year, and I'm looking really for a local authority that will partnership with us, that can be a central point to distribute all our guidance and information. We're a not-for-profit organisation, so getting the message out there is much more important than us actually making money. So my role is really to get the code out to as many people that would benefit from it, and the guidance that we use. And a lot of this guidance that we do use is all free anyway.
The reason why Peter got in touch with us, and he says, right, what's different in the codes of practice from when it was written in 1996 to where it is now? And that's the reason why I'm here, just to give a quick overview on what it is and what the equipment that we sort of manufacture, because we're manufacturers of equipment. So we're the largest sort of LPG regulator and equipment provider in the country, and we manufacture in Europe, and we're the UK subsidiary for it. So we concentrate on sort of the technical safety local requirements. We do a lot in the leisure industry, obviously, with the caravan market and the statics and the mobile. But we do now get involved a lot in street food and event catering. I don't know how much that applies to you guys here, but it's like Richard said, there's synergies across the board with that type of thing. And sort of we're widely recognised as really the reference point in the gas industry for LPG professionals. And what we've done is we've got together with key market stakeholders such as your UKLPG, along with Richard, NCAS, the NCC, and environmental agencies. We do a lot with British Waterways and the boat safety schemes and all that type of thing. So we work with them and we develop the products to meet those standards and the best working practices. And what Peter wanted to do is get you guys to understand what's changed in the codes of practices and why we've done it. So we launched in 2017, we launched the codes of practice at Street Food Live, and then Peter wanted us to come along today and just give you the sort of response of that and what the needs of the market was, so for inspection authorities and event organisers. Richard says he's going to be working with councils and environmental health or agencies. Tomorrow I'm actually going up to Wrexham to give another talk on to environmental health officers about this. So it's all sort of fitting in with where we're going in the industry to make it safer. And the collaboration is between the suppliers, the trade associations, us as a manufacturer, your ACS training and accreditation centres and your inspection authorities. And I've just been having a chat with Andy next door from Gas Safe, and he's sort of fully on board with what we're trying to do. We, as a manufacturer, we want to sort of promote our safe product, and we manufacture the product which makes the industry and the codes of practice work. It's not to say that other people don't manufacture a product, but if there's a product out there that works and it's been designed to this codes of practice, then it's available. So the key areas where it's changed is pipe work, so the correct management. So installation standards, so you've got your BS 6891, which a lot of you, if you're working on LPG, are probably installing to, because you're installing in large mobile or event arenas. And what we did with the pipe work is getting away from cylinders in an event or in a gazebo with orange hose, with connectors, with your T-pieces and your Jubilee clips strewn all over the floor. And what we did with the pipework is to actually make a pipework system, and in the codes of practice, it goes to with armoured hosing, rodent-proof, snap connectors, so as it fails safe. So as you're getting away from your orange hose, because there has been, you saw the images of the accidents that's happened there is a result of those type of installations. And the storage of the use of cylinders, it focuses on that. It references Codes of Practice 7, which is where you've got all your information on your storage and the use of cylinders, and appliances. So the appliances to be CE marked with the new the GAR regulations. Everything's got to have a CE mark on it, and within this code of practice, it calls for everything to have a thermocouple or a flame supervision device on your appliance. And then the gas pressure regulation. This is where our expertise comes into play, because we're the largest manufacturer in the country of gas regulators. So we sort of developed within the code the alignment with the standard 6891. So it introduces overpressure safety systems on everything above your sort of standard 1.5 kilogram, 21 kilowatt appliance. So for the safety of LPG, what's an OPSO? Do we know what an OPSO is? An overpressure safety device. So it's an overpressure shut-off device, and it protects the appliances from pressures in excess of what they're designed to be used. So if there's an incorrect installation, damage or failure to the hosing or to the cylinders, it results in serious accidents. This one was actually on a bungalow where it didn't have OPSO on there, and it was a Boxing Day. Somebody came downstairs, it had got a regulator on it that shouldn't be used on there, it leaked into the building, someone came downstairs, switched the light on, and it went boom. So that's why this is where overpressure protection comes into play, because what it does is we use the principles of like a circuit breaker on your electrical systems. So the basis for the design in the OPSO system, or this OPSO system that we've got here, because this particular piece of equipment features a lot now in the street food industry. And what it has is it's designed as a circuit breaker. So as when it trips in your house on your electrical system, you can flick a switch and it'll come back on. So this is exactly what this one's been designed around. So it's the same concept as your RCD. You've got your overpressure protection and your limited relief. So your limited relief is like an earth, so it'll relieve away. And you've got a tamper-proof reset on here. And you've got the weatherproof design, so as obviously cylinders are used outdoors, and this is what we use on cylinder installations. And it's called a consumer safety reset button. We've patented the design, so it's a recognised design now within the industry. And for the safe operation of it, why did we focus on setting up for training? So design and installation, so a pre-designed pipework system instead of your cylinders with your hoses strewn all over the place. It's to the compliance of the codes of practice. It's safe and it's easy to use. So it's designed around setting up very, very quickly so as you can trade. I don't know how that goes with your industry and in where you're looking at do you use cabins, or do you install or do you distribute your equipment around into events where you can actually just plug it in and it'll play. So the design of the equipment and the installation. So we've as a company, we developed this. It's called a quick safe gas system, and what you have here is you have a portable cylinder stand, so you can put it away in a car. You put your gas regulator on, you connect it up to your pigtails. This is snap connection fittings here, so you can have a line going through into your gazebo or into your. If this is sat next to a porter cabin, or if this is sat next to a cabin, it can just be plugged straight into a plug on the wall, and then your system's up and running within 10 minutes.